Philadelphia, are you ready?
No! They said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
Welcome, everybody, to Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast. And today, the guest on our show, RJ Krasinski. RJ, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. It's good to be on the show. Big fan of what you guys are doing outside of obviously being the Flyers fans that you are. Much respect for you guys.
I mean, if we're going to throw shots, tilt your head down for a second.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well, at least my quarterback can throw for over 400 yards.
I knew it was coming.
hey, you know what? I grew up in Buffalo, like we said before we started recording. I grew up with Jim Kelly. So I have to take my shots for quarterbacks because we haven't had a quarterback since Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
Drew Bledsoe. I'm like, Drew Bledsoe was blown up before he even got to Buffalo. He was just a temporary Band-Aid. Just like,
and you guys have Flutie Flakes too?
Actually, believe it or not, my mom still has those. I actually bought a thing of Flutie Flakes. There's actually a local radio personality.
There's a shrine that's built around these Flutie Flakes upstairs.
Oh, yeah. They're still good. I bet my brother like $20 to eat just a spoonful of them. He didn't do it, but no, there's a guy here, locally radio personality, that actually drank it's a Jenny Cream Ale. It's a local brewery. It's a cream ale. He drank a cream ale with those, what are they, the Allen Flakes or Allen? No, the cereal that Josh Allen has.
Oh, okay. I got it. Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Hey, man, what you guys do up there in Buffalo is your own business.
Well, whatever happens in Buffalo comes out on Twitter and YouTube.
Only at the football games.
Only the football games.
I was having a discussion the other day before the season started. I'm like, what are these, jackwagons are going to be doing? You can't, because they're forbidding people to go into the parking lot, so they can't tailgate. I'm sure, I don't know how it is down by you guys for the Eagles games, but I'm like, they're going to have to wreck their own house.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of parties going on, like tailgate parties of people just being complete asses.
Yeah, and going through tables that way in their own homes.
Exactly. Wreck your own house. You don't have to come to the Ralph or wherever. I don't want to, I don't want to disparage it and say the vet, but we'll say the vet. The hell with it. But yeah,
a lot of tension going on right now in this show, and it's not even directly related to the topic of wrestling. We're just throwing shots for no reason. Let's dial it in. Let's talk a little. Let's get back to the topic at hand, so they say, and we'll talk.
Reel it in.
Yeah, we'll reel it in because this can go so far left.
Yeah,
we need to dial it back now. We need to gain control.
Well, at least it doesn't go wide right.
That's true.
See, I might as well take the shot. I'll take the shot at myself before you guys do it.
That was a good
one. Anyway, the wrestling world has been since pandemic has been ups and downs. Recently started to pick up as a whole in all of wrestling because people are starting to put on shows again and whatnot. But the top dog still remains. I guess it's all based on speculation, but the top dog still remains WWE. Never slowed down during the pandemic, as well as AEW because they kind of had to. But I want to start with WWE. We'll talk about them now. I don't know. I'm sure you grew up a fan of WWF, and you probably kept in touch with WWE a little bit here and there. But for me personally, WWE is always it's almost a forced watch. I force myself to watch it because I know that there's so much to talk about, whether it be good or mainly bad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're just going to go off of what people are talking about, I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone's got their good and bad. There's good and bad everywhere. There'll always be no perfect promotion. At least I think so. Like, I don't think there'll ever be a perfect promotion. Although some people will say that AEW is the perfect promotion. But I don't think that there ever will be one. But with WWE, they've been doing it for the longest. So they did something right. Because they would have been beaten.
Yeah, I don't, as much as people want to say it'll happen, WWE will never be beat. WWE will never be, knocked off top of the mountain. AEW will come very close. Other promotions will come very close, just like it has been for the last, number of years, 30 years, 35, 40 years, whatever, since we've been alive.
Yeah.
We saw it come close. Obviously, 83 weeks there straight with WCW beating WWF at that time. But, I tell you, man, just take it with a grain of salt. Like what you like. If you want to watch WWE, fine. Then you have every right. Everybody has every right to complain about it, regardless. In contrary to belief, I'll complain about majority of the time anyways. But I turned in last night, saw the whole, American Gladiators reboot with Retribution. And I'm like, you had me. And then I'm like, as soon as they started talking, I'm like, oh, nope, I'm going back to football. And then because 90% of the time with WWE, I'll go over on their YouTube page, I'll go to somewhere else and get the highlights, get the condensed version. So I don't have to, if I don't want to watch this promo, I don't want to watch this match, I can just skip it and go to this. And there's some good in there. You have to admit, you get the guys like Almas, you get guys like the Street Profits. I'm huge fans of the Street Profits because
they're characters.
They have that personality.
They come off as they could be that larger than life personality. They have those qualities, especially in this day and age, because it's different from every era. Like, you wouldn't pick them up and put them back in the Attitude Era because they would be seen as more of a comedy gimmick than anything else. But nowadays, they're legit just because of the way the times have changed. So I agree with you. I think that they have it. They have the personality. They have the in-ring ability. They're an actual team who acts as a team.
But you also have to take into account, too, when you look at a lot of these wrestling promotions, whatever it may be, whether it's WWE, NXT, whether it be NWA or ROH or AEW, whatever, you can't tell me that we'll do the old plug thing here. We'll take a survey. Okay, who's your WWE champion or who's your NWA champion? I will bet money on it saying that most people, like legitimate fans, I'm not saying you're, every day I'm going to watch it. I'm talking like guys like you, guys like me, guys that'll listen to this show. They're going to know who the NWA champion is more than they will the WWE champion, because Nick Aldis, the real world champion, has been a champion for over 700 days. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can say he's, this epidemic, blah, 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 blah. Everybody said the same thing. AEW's had the same thing. WWE's had the same thing. But for a promotion, in my eyes, to really be a great promotion, you have to have people like that. That's why I said the Street Profits, because if you say, okay, who's the tag team champions? Street Profits. Whether they're, I don't even know who the SmackDown champion. What are they? Cesaro and Nakamura. Yeah, I couldn't up until I stumbled across SmackDown last week. I'm like, I didn't even know they were champions until I saw them. You know what I mean? And they rightly deserve. They're great talent. But a lot of these promotions will just, it's a revolving door with these titles. And a lot of it is WWE, because you have to have, person X, Y, and Z has to get this face time, but you have to, get to this promotion or that promotion to make that money off that. So, in a roundabout way, it's, WWE's in a hard place.
So what you're saying, that the diehard fans like us, like the people that watch it because we love it and we watch as much as we possibly can, would know the Nick Aldis is the NWA champion because he's been the champion for so long. So they give you that prestige. You get that prestige. that prestige that comes with whichever title you're talking about.
Exactly. And a lot of people will go back. Let's go back, let's go back 15 years. John Cena, as much as people did not like him, and even currently probably, I don't know, he was the face of that company. Each decade, you get the 90s. It was Rock, or Attitude.
Rock,
Austin, Taker. You had
they had a lot of face. That whole company was the face of the company.
Right, but you go over to WCW. You had Sting. You had Hogan.
And you had Goldberg.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he had 178 days as champion, as undefeated. Or
if you throw him against Hugh Morris and Norman Smiley, of course he's going to have 175 straight days. But you throw him a bone every once in a while. You'll throw him against a Raven or Nash or Hall or Hogan or whatever. I get that, but I'm like, no disrespect to him personally. I just never was a fan of him. I never was.
I'm still not.
Yeah.
No.
Nah, Sting was always the guy, and he'll always be the guy.
But that's the thing. You get that face of the WCW, old school NWA. It was Sting. It was Steamboat. It was Flair. Dusty. You had that face. That's what dragged you into that promotion. regardless. So
I think I know where you're going with this, and I like this topic, so I want to stay on this topic because we've probably talked about this topic ad nauseum. But I think it's one of the best topics today is that does wrestling have that? Because like the eras that you're talking about, these are megastars in the world of wrestling. These are larger than life. These are known by wrestling fans, but by everyday people as well, like the Flairs. Like even Sting, or obviously Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. Today, there hasn't been, or John Cena, even John Cena, I'll give you that, from 15 years ago to today. Anyone else besides maybe Chris Jericho, there is no one that is like that larger than life, that person, that marquee, that person that's going to bring in 1.5 million, 2 million fans alone. They don't have that in wrestling. Now, is that the problem, or is wrestling just going to have to save itself and just be interesting in a different way?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're still going to have – I'll use AEW as an example. It's a young promotion. I'll give them that. But, like I said, those diehard fans, they're going to know who Cody is. They're going to know who Kenny Omega is. They're going to know who the Young Bucks are. Because they'll watch it. They've watched them in ROH. They've watched them in New Japan or Impact or whatever. Wherever they've been, they know who they are. You use a little bit of that. You sprinkle that dust on a lot of these guys, like in AEW, like a Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus. I will say, and correct, this is recorded, give those two guys, Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, whether they separate, whatever the case may be, they'll have gold around their waist within the next year to 6 months. Jungle Boy I've never seen, with his athletic ability, I've never seen it before. However, we haven't heard him talk yet. That's the problem. There hasn't been those well-rounded guys that can, put up or shut up kind of thing. They can't stand toe-to-toe with a Jericho or a Cody. And, I'll even go as far as saying a Moxley. Moxley's improved. I'm surprised how much of a change of scenery has done well for him. But it also helps that he also has a title around his waist too. So, but I think that, they need to sometimes, sit back, relax, and see, the business as a whole too. A little, like I said, a little bit of what you said, both sides of it.
Now, I think with the way the business is going has been going, with at least after John Cena, it doesn't look like there is going to be that guy. And I know anyone can come out of nowhere and be that guy, and they can make people that guy, or girl for that matter, be that person as long as they have the backing. I don't know if wrestling is going to ever have that again, especially WWE. Can't say AEW or any of the other companies, but WWE, I don't think we're ever going to get a John Cena, a Hulk Hogan, a Stone Cold, a Rock. I think it's going to be run by committee. I think with so much talent that they have, as mismanaged as it may be, it's one of the most talented rosters, period, out there, even though it is the biggest. But the talent they have is amazing. It's best in the world, that roster. But they just can't do anything with it. But I think using it, if they use it right, and as a whole, I don't think you need that guy. When you got Adam Cole and Styles and Rollins and Owens, and that's not even scraping the surface of all the talent they have, you don't need that guy. You really don't. There's so much there.
Here's why you do need this guy, though. Here's why I think that you do need this person, because the ultimate goal is to not peak and not trail into the same number over and over. Your goal as a business is to grow a fan base. So if you don't have that mega star to draw these new eyes in, like, you can appease the hardcore fan all you want. You might get one or two or a few people that'll watch it once and be like, okay, well, this was worth watching. But if you don't have that larger than life personality, if you don't have that person that will act as, say, The Rock or Austin, because I think those are the two, or Hogan you can throw in there too. Those are the best examples of people that could gather a large group of people in a short amount of time to be invested in them. You don't have that. You don't have that today with really anybody. You don't have that person that's going to snatch up. I mean, unless you go viral. That's like the today's thing, is if you go viral and you're able to be seen by millions.
Yeah, there's one guy that I will say, and I've watched him since he was on the indie circuit, is Keith Lee. I think they're made the right decision to get him to the main roster at that time. I will give them the WWE credit when they did bring him up. I think they're just treading water with him right now because they don't know what to do with him just yet. Rumors has it that Keith Lee is a Vince McMahon guy. I get that. Great. But you have to be a Triple H guy too, because he's the one that's going to be, God forbid that day comes, Vince McMahon is, he's kind of, probably be dying in that chair at Gorilla. But you gotta be that Vince guy, and you gotta be that Triple H guy, because those, Triple H is going to be taken over. But Keith Lee, I will, back him 100%, because I think he could be that face. He really could be. But only time will tell.
Here's the thing. If he is looked at as that next big thing, as that big – speaking of next big thing, Brock Lesnar is another one that transcended just more than the WWE. But not to get sidetracked, if Keith Lee is that next big thing, you don't have time to wait, because the more that they let it kind of unfold slowly, that's just going to turn people off more. People are going to get more frustrated. If he's the guy, push him now. If he's over, push him now. They made this mistake with Reigns. Reigns was over in I think it was 2014 or 2015 Royal Rumble, and they waited another year for that push. If they would have just pulled the trigger then, it could have set a completely different trajectory for Roman Reigns. They just wait too long. They wait too long. They wait it out. Okay, it's like they're playing double dutch. They don't know when the hell they want to jump in. So push them. It's either sink or swim. Just do it. Don't tread water, because you have other things that you want to get through first. If he's that good, then let them have it. They need to. They need people that are hungry. They need competition.
Well, I think they're still trying to make money at the same time too. They don't want to, and I get that, because I'd be the same way if I was in their shoes trying to book this 3-hour show. And you have to look at it that way. These guys, whether they're 2 guys, whether they're 4 guys, whether they're 25 guys, they have to write a 3-hour show every week. Some of them twice a week, because they write for SmackDown too. But I really think that we're going to see him get that WrestleMania moment. You know, they want to get it on these big time pay-per-views, whether it be a Survivor Series or Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or whatever. But I just, they're going to give him the push. It's just, I don't think they're going to waste it on the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, he's going to win the Royal Rumble and he's going to go on and win because that's the only way that he can win, because you win Royal Rumble, you automatically win at WrestleMania. But you have to do it the right way. I think they have a laundry list of things for him. It's just a matter of, okay, you have to take into account the current situation that the business is in with all this epidemic stuff they have going on. They don't want to do the same thing they did with Keith Lee that they had to do with Drew McIntyre. And I killed me because I love Drew McIntyre. And I hated to see him not get that WrestleMania moment at Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have helped him greatly, because it would have been in front of fans and more people would have been watching, because let's face it, it's WrestleMania and everyone watches WrestleMania. Even if you haven't watched it in like 10 years, it's WrestleMania. Okay, Brock Lesnar's there, because you have those names on there still that'll draw people in. Mm. So,
and there's, like I said, they're still making money. They still want to make money. Obviously, as much as they say that they're losing money, they're making money. You don't let them fool you, you know. And I think that's why a lot of the AEW and WWE are getting a lot of slack from the rest of the wrestling world, because they're still running. And, you know, and they get these stories coming out, whether they be true or they're not or whatever. Oh, these get these positive tests. It's running rapid through the PC and all this. I'm like, I'll believe it when it happens. I'm not one to, you know, read those spoilers or whatever the case may be and believe a lot of it until it actually happens or makes sense.
Yeah. Because if everyone did get it, I mean, it's easy to assume that, they're still going to run and they don't care. But to actually sit back and think about it, be like, well, if everyone really got, do we really think that they wouldn't have closed up shop? Do they really think that them being a publicly traded company that their investors would be like, oh yeah, it's still run, and we can jeopardize losing the whole thing and getting shut down?
It's not gonna. I'm just surprised that they let the network stay at the same price. It didn't go up too much, you know. With everything that's been going on, I like I said, obviously they're probably not hurting too much for money, you know. As we saw today. As we saw today, Stephanie sold like $2 million worth of her stock in the company. So
yes. Well, Hunter did that, I think, like a month ago too.
Yeah, he did. He's done it recently too. So I like I said, I don't know if it's going to be a different venture. Like, obviously when we saw the XFL form, we saw Vince, sell this amount of stock or that amount of stock. I'm like, I just think they're trying to, put money away for a rainy day. You know what I mean? And like I said, $2 million is rainy day money. Then, let's have it,
Yeah, real. That's the life I'll never see.
Yeah, right. Not in my lifetime. Maybe in my second lifetime. Maybe my wife will marry a millionaire one after I go or something. I don't know.
Don't give her any ideas if she's going to watch this.
She already knows that. We've been married too long. We've been married almost 11 years. She already knows.
So I do want to touch on, especially because one of the bigger stories coming out this week was about Ricochet and being a free agent and him not re-signing, and from right now it looks like carrying on and maybe becoming a free agent. If that happens, I don't think WWE's that stupid to let a talent like that go. But if they are and they can't afford him because of the money, where do you think Ricochet would be best fit?
I think the obvious answer is going to be an AEW. But, because I thought about it after you guys sent me what we're going to be talking about tonight, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, AEW would be too obvious. Like I said, he may very, very well may end up there, and great for him.
Yeah, but he'll fit in.
But I think he'll fit in wherever he goes. I really think I see him going in Impact.
I think
probably one of the better fits would be Impact. I mean, match quality wise and getting exposure, because you come in and you're already at the top for the most part. I think you're challenging as soon as you come in. You could easily be an X Division champion, and for that matter, you can be a world champion as well. Because let's face it, Impact doesn't have the size. They don't have the big monsters. They have wrestlers that look like wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, but and I think too with Impact too, they have the opportunity to work the indies too, where you don't see a lot of AEW wrestlers doing that. A few select ones will, but they're just as appearances. You're not going to get your in-ring talent, going to, these independent promotions. And I think that's where Ricochet really flourishes, where there's not really any, hey, okay, go do it. Figure out, you got 6 minutes, you got 7 minutes, whatever. Go. That's where he flourishes. Because, like I said, you see him in, Lucha Underground. You saw him in Independence. You saw, PWG. And he flourished. And, both my son and I are big fans of his. And, I have been. And it really sucks that, he gets these crappy gimmicks where he goes, he's, Cedric Alexander's lackey or whatever. And then Alexander goes over and gets beat down by, like I said, the American Gladiators Reborn or something. I don't know, but
we're talking about Retribution for anybody that didn't get that reference.
Go Google American Gladiators. You'll see the difference. But I never got it. I always thought that they weren't him. And even like we talked about with Aleister Black, same thing. They came up at the exact same time. They got those tag team pushes. They got those WrestleMania matches. And then after that, it seemed like they kind of fell off the shelf a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you never truly know what goes on in the back or who you have to kiss ass to at what point in time. And if you're too vocal, they don't like you and just become problematic. So, I mean, it's hard to say that Ricochet's best fit is WWE. I mean, NXT for sure. I think that system was made for guys like him, but the main card they don't know. Vince has never known what to really do with a smaller guy. He refuses to push him. I mean, Daniel Bryan was a rarity. Guys like AJ Styles kind of came in with the pedigree and came in with the background and the history, so that helped him. But I mean, if he hadn't come in with that pedigree, he would have never got that push.
You can say the same thing about a Jeff Hardy. Look how long it took him to win singles gold. And I mean outside heavyweight gold. And he's not that small of a guy. Even he's my height. He's 5'11", 220, 215, whatever. But he was never got that push. He never got that push. He had that moment.
He always had those fans, and he grew.
Oh yeah, he still does.
And he still does. He will always have those fans. But those fans were in much larger numbers than a guy like Ricochet, where he would have to. He would be in the same boat where he'd have 10 years from now he might have it. But what he has working for him is that kids. I feel like Ricochet could portray a superhero type character, and he would have the kids. So those kids would grow up and they would continue to be his fan. Like, I feel like Ricochet isn't like an overnight sensation, but I feel like a 5-year plan for him, and he could be that guy.
Well, and you also have to take into account too, his current contract isn't up until next year.
Not till January, I believe. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, are you just going to sit on the shelf, with guys like Gallows and Anderson did, like Rusev did, whatever the case may be. Any of these guys, you can, put insert name here that now currently in another promotion that was in WWE. But, I think, he's got that business mentality. I think he's gonna land on his feet. somewhere. Like I said, I think AEW will probably be the absolute best fit for him. But you have to take into account too, a lot of these people are going to AEW. They're going to start running into the same issue that WWE is, where they have too many guys.
I think they're treading on that right now because of the amount of TV time that they have, the little amount. They have 2 hours network and 1 hour for YouTube a week. And they're starting to get to the point of where we know who they're pushing. It's kind of like we know who's getting that spotlight. And there's not enough room because there's not enough time to give these newer names the push.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not their fault doing, but it's just like, okay.
It just happens.
It just happens because, if they don't jump on a guy like a Rusev or Miro, like I'm calling him the Rusev until
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to be doing that. But if you don't jump on a guy like Miro, he's going to go somewhere else. And you may not have the opportunity again down the road, whether it be 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be, to get him back into your promotion. Granted, the way that I believe what I saw what his contract is with AEW, he can work over in Japan.
Yeah, he's probably got the same thing going on that Moxley has.
Right. Mm-hmm. And but yeah, it's just if you don't jump at it, you're gonna lose out, and you don't want to see him on somebody else's TV show.
Well, here's the thing: AEW deals with a lot of strength because, they know they're the top alternative, and they know that they have, and they've already proven this with Moxley and Brody Lee, and not so much Hager, but that's not really their fault because Hager's never really been a top draw, or Cody or anyone like that. They're giving them, like, they came in and they're featured right off the bat. So these guys know that they've been working the mid-card to main event for 2 years now, and now they have this alternative on a network to be a top name and to actually get that exposure that they thought that they rightfully deserved in WWE. So I think that's their main, besides the money, because AEW for a Rusev or Brody Lee, they're going to shell out top dollar, or even Moxley. Like, they're going to shell out top dollar. You know that already. It's what they do in those contracts that I think is the most appealing for the wrestlers to come over. One, they're not working as much of a schedule. Two, they're giving them the option to work for, like, dream companies like New Japan, because you've never seen Moxley over in Japan. You've never seen Rusev over in Japan. Like, so if you get to see them during, like, a G1 climax or something like that, you get that dream scenario and you get more eyes on your product. So it's kind of a win-win for them, and that's something that WWE doesn't allow you to do. So it's the most intriguing if you're in that position. So I think.
But you also take into account too. You're starting to see AEW do it a lot more, where they're doing a lot more of merchandising. They're doing a lot more promotions. That's why a lot of these guys, people will crap on WWE because, this third party, you can't do this third party stuff with Cameo or Twitch or whatever. You know what? Then, go sell shirts, go sell merchandise, make these spots. That's how a lot of these guys, look at Austin back in the day. He made more money on his merch than he did with his damn contract.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and like I said, and a lot of that is going to be the company making those shirts for you, but it also takes into account, I would say probably about 95% of it is going to be you getting yourself over enough to get, my son's 8-year-old, he wants to go out and get a Ricochet shirt or an Aleister Black shirt or a New Day shirt even.
Mm-hmm.
New Day is one of the most popular tag teams in the world by far.
I'll agree to that.
And
they have been for a while. They have been
exactly. And more than half, I say probably close to, majority of that, it's all merchandise too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have to take that into account too, where, everybody, the product's bad. Why is everybody still going there? Well, you see a lot of these, going to a lot of these, movies. They're doing TV shows. They're doing, all this merch. They're doing figures. They're doing this. That's where the money is. They're going there for the money. You know what I mean? And you're telling me that, we'll say a guy like Ricochet or Aleister Black, dude, they're crying all the way to the bank, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, you know,
the people that feel bad for them, I think it's more of an emotional, because you can't physically feel bad for them for making money.
And not only that, working for what typically is their dream. Because most people grew up watching this, dreaming to do that. They get to do it every day and get paid handsomely for it.
Right, and something drastic that out of you know circulation for him, because you get a guy like Cody that said, okay, enough's enough, I'm out, you know, or you get a guy like Khrushchev's enough, you know, you didn't do this, you were told this and this happened, or you said, oh well, they're cheering you, oh no, they're really booing you. Okay, well, fine, okay, great. But it's like, okay, let's just, you know, you're making the money. And I think it all comes down to it that, excuse me, they, you know, enough is enough. They don't want to do it for the money anymore. They got enough money. They made a good living. Like I said, Rusev's a perfect example. He's made tons of money. You know what I mean? And so now he's doing it for him. Now he's doing it, you know, to wrestle.
Yeah, you get to that point of where it becomes like, all right, I'm not even doing what I love anymore. I'm still getting paid, and I still have enough money. Like I would put the Revival in there as well. They made a shit ton of money. And they were just,
and a lot of that's merchandise, like I said.
Yeah, and they're just doing. They just want to wrestle now, and do minor. They want to wrestle, but they also want to do it their way. They want to do the promos their way. They want to talk their way. They don't want someone in their ear telling them how they should speak. And I think that's why a lot of people are drawn to AEW, because you know that the emotions are going to be real.
And I think that's why I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I think that's why they finally put Heyman with Reigns, because they finally figured out that Roman can't speak worth crap.
There's been people that have been saying that since. I mean, all you had to do is go back to the original Shield, and when they first came in, you had Ambrose was the mouthpiece. Rollins was the in-ring guy, and Reigns was kind of there as the muscle. He was just a quiet enforcer. And he continued to be that in whatever position. He was just an enforcer, basically. He was one that was winning a lot, but he was never that main guy. Like, it was always Ambrose, and then when Rollins turned, it was Rollins. Reigns was never that guy. He was always that third guy. Why they thought that was going to change.
I'm a huge Reigns fan. I always have been. I've always enjoyed his in-ring stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like I said, the promo has just never been there. He's always had those guys to do that for him. And then when they branched him out and kind of just threw him to the wolves kind of thing. Okay, here, we'll see if you float or sing.
And they were holding him up with lifesavers the whole time. He was sinking bad, and they kept throwing out buoys.
Well, and an easy thing to say is, oh, when that happens, make him a heel. Well, that's the easy way of doing it. That's too easy.
Yep. It's easy, but it's almost as if that they were stubborn enough to be like, all right, it can't be. They can't be right. He has to be the guy. He has to be the top baby face of the company. It's like it was too easy to just listen to the fans and do what they were just saying, what the majority were saying. But, I mean, look, we don't know his numbers, but I'm assuming that Roman Reigns was probably one of the top sellers in merch as a babyface, and they didn't want to lose out on that. And that always has something to do with it, because he was selling a lot of merchandise to kids, just like the New Day. Once they became babyfaces, they stayed babyfaces because they were selling merch like crazy, and the company was making a shit ton of money off of it, and they were making a shit ton of money off it as well. So it's hard when you're making that money to not what, because you don't have anyone in the bullpen. You don't have anyone that's going to push Roman Reigns merch.
No, but you also have to take into account. I got to the point too where a lot of these guys, we have to have you're either a heel or you're a face. There's no in between.
I like those times.
Well, no, I like them too. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but that's not what the time we're in.
No.
And we're not in that time where you have talent on the WWE roster. And like I said, you had flourishes there with Corbin, you had flourishes there with McIntyre and Ziggler and whatever. Great. Let him be him. Let him be the pissed off guy that never got the just due. Let him be that guy. Put Heyman with him to be his advocate. You know what I mean? And then and go from there. You don't have to have a designated heel, a designated face to be have a decent promotion, to have a decent match. You don't have to. But I think, you know, I think Vince is still grasping at straws where he still thinks that it can happen. And I think that time has sailed.
I think that if they would just make up their mind, if they were to just stay good versus bad, I think that they would be fine. I think that they just get too confused and they listen to too many – they look into trends and whatnot. But if they were to just stay true to what they perfected, and that was good versus evil, I think that they would be just fine. I think that people still like that. And even the younger generation, I think that they still need that clarity between the two. Because I think when you throw in the tweener and the person, the heel that does babyface things or the babyface thing that acts kind of heelish, I think it mucks it up too much. I think if there is a clear good versus bad, I think they'd be so much better off. Let AEW do that. Let AEW have someone that doesn't want to be a heel or a face and they just want to be their self and how they portray the wrestling world. But Vince's recipe is gold. I think good versus evil would work no matter what.
I actually,
you got
1 second. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I do want to say with that, and as we were watching it growing up and you saw Austin, you saw Rock, they had them at certain points, and Stone Cold and The Rock were both these baby faces coming in. And Stone Cold wasn't, but The Rock was. And you could see how the fans wanted it. And that's how they went with it. Now, Rocky Maivia was supposed to be the most white-bread, baby-face guy in the world, smiling and high-fiving everyone. And he got booed out of the building. Die, Rocky, die. So he was like, screw it. All right, let's go that way then. We're going to make him a heel. And then all of a sudden, The Rock was born. Same thing with Austin. Austin was this bad guy who was going to break all the rules, and everyone loved him for it. So he became now the baby face, and those roles were reversed. So I think wrestling needs that. Let them, all right, yeah, you might have a plan for them. Let them go out and do it. What the crowd tells you, which is hard now with the pandemic, but with the crowd, that's where you're going to get it. They're babyface, but the crowd don't want it, let's change it. They don't do that anymore. This is what you're getting. Whether you like it or not, this is what you're getting.
It started with Cena, too, because they refused to turn him. As much as the fans told you we want him to turn, they never pulled the trigger. They could have. But again, it boils down to kids are still buying a shitload of John Cena T-shirts, hats, wristbands, chains, the fucking things that said Word Life on them. Kids were just buying it and eating up the Fruity Pebbles. They're selling more now. So it was so hard to turn them. Mm-hmm. It was because once they turned, they knew that the people that were booing them weren't really going to buy his stuff. They were just going to boo him. Yeah. The kids are who you invest in. And the teenagers, if you're talking about the Attitude Era, all bets were out the window because you saw anyone from 10 to 55 wearing a DX shirt.
But I think, we mentioned it that, okay, you had Rock, you had Austin. The main difference between the Attitude Era and now is the exposure.
Yeah.
Back in the Attitude Era, you couldn't go grab your phone and look at Twitter, look at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever.
I don't want to pass
that exposure.
I want to make this we might have gave you a list of topics, but that completely changes once we get mid conversation because then the topics are really born from there. So I had to give you a template, but that wasn't really the route that I knew we were going to end up taking anyway.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about social media and staying relevant and getting yourself over and getting that exposure because that is your bread and butter. To be the same character on TV as you are and that's where it gets mucky and that's where people because if you had a really big heel and they were like take MJF. Let's just take MJF he is the same person on all spectrums. He is the same person unless you're sitting down with him and you're completely out of the element or you're getting real MJF. But MJF is that person who portrays the asshole on TV, but also does it on all forms of social media and in public. Now, if more people were to do that and not gray the water, wrestling would be in a much better place because there is that disbelief now. You really think that this person is an asshole. You really think this person is the best person in the world. I mean, to use that as – and then you would see more people. You would get that exposure. You would get possibly that larger-than-life personality. I mean, you had it with the New Day. I mean, the New Day was everywhere, especially with Up, Up, Down, Down with Xavier Woods and all that. You got to see their – like they were – but the thing with them is that they were almost like you could picture them on screen. That's how they were off screen. Mm-hmm. Like they just looked like they were having fun.
Yeah, but you see with MJF, though, and I've seen him out of character once in person, once. All the other times, he's flicking off kids. You know, he's calling women's, you know, the C word. He's calling the women the S word. He doesn't give a crap. And it's great. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I hate to agree with that, but the only reason why I think you're not seeing a lot of people doing it is because they want to sell merch. They want to do this. They want to make the money. And when you're a heel, nobody's going to buy your crap unless they're really the diehards like you guys and me. Christ, I'll go buy an MJF. Sure, I haven't, but I'll go buy one. But, you know what I mean? Just because, you know, he's freaking badass, you know? But I think that's what a lot of people, that's what it plays into now, you know, that people don't want to be that, you know, that Baron Corbin, that, you know, back, you can go even to Impact when Sami Callihan was the heel after he beat the crap out of what's his face, Eddie Edwards with the baseball bat. That's a perfect example on how they should do it. You know what I mean? Something, you know, a mistake, an accident happens like that, go with it. Make it a storyline.
Yes, exactly. And compensate the guy for doing it because you know he's not going to get those merch sales. But he's going to carry your company right now, which is what he did after that. After he got into it, and then he got into it with Cornette, which was even better for him because now that you got even more exposure because you fucking told Cornette off or you spit on Cornette. Once you do that, I mean, fucking just back in the Brinks truck for him.
Well, get in line. I'm sure there's a lot of people in that line.
Yeah, I would bet that there's more spit line than handshake line.
We'll say spit. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be spit. But that's the thing, you know, everybody now, it's like you're not the days of the Flair days, the Dusty days where, you know, you go to work your 9-to-5 job, you get home, you take a shower, you eat dinner, you go to the Spectrum, you go to the Odd, you go to Maple Leaf Garden, you go to Boston Garden, whatever, and you see a fight. You see a wrestling match. Those days are gone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're right.
You're not going.
You're right.
And you're not going to. You're gonna go online. You're gonna get the merch. You know, if you don't like a guy, you guy's a heel. You think he's an asshole. You're not gonna buy his stuff. You know what I mean? So I think in that aspect, like you said, I think these companies are starting to see it, and they're compensating these heels the right way.
Well, and you know what? To that point of not buying a heels merch and stuff like that, I listen to Busted Open Radio a lot. And Bully told a story of how when they first got to WWE, him and Devon sat down with Vince and said, we don't do pictures. We don't do autographs. We stick to who we are. And Vince takes his hand, puts it on Bully's knee and goes, this is the WWE. You're going to take pictures and sign autographs. You're going to be a superstar. And he's like, oh, you're right. But that's the thing is that is good. That not taking pictures and telling kids to screw off in an airport for wanting an autograph. Like if you're a heel, that's perfect. Exactly what you want. But with WWE, don't matter. And
that's where the money comes into it, though. That's what they go to these companies for. You know what I mean? They want to have those WrestleMania moments. Like you said, everybody grew up, regardless on your age. You grew up a WWE fan because that's what you're exposed to. That's what you have 3-4 times a week sometimes. Mm-hmm. That's what you have. It's on national television.
I will say this, that it would make it very hard. There wouldn't be nearly as many wrestling podcasts if everyone were to stick to kayfabe, and because no one would want to do interviews because it would hurt their character. So social media also is like stuff like what we do is the kiss of death to wrestling as well, I guess you could say, because you're getting a behind-the-scene look at a wrestler, or so you would think. But most of the times, depending, you can kind of grasp if you're getting a story or you're getting the real person. I mean, it kind of hurts the business as well.
Yeah, I think, I believe it was, I forgot what it was, whether it be Austin's podcast or Jericho's podcast years ago, when Matt Hardy did the whole broken gimmick. He was literally on that show, that podcast, in character the whole time.
Yeah, that was Jericho's.
Yeah,
and
he was dedicated to that. I think it was Jericho's, after you say, yeah.
Yeah.
But he might have done Austin, so I can't remember. But anyways, there's not anybody out there now that does that. You know what I mean? Even MJF, he's done Austin's, he's done these guys, he's done Jericho's, and he really hasn't. He's been back and forth as far as character goes. You know what I mean? Hasn't really been a full out heel on the podcast, but I just, as much as I agree with you guys as far as, okay, you got to have a heel or a face. You got to go promotion to promotion, because some promotion can get away with it, like an AEW can get away with having a heel and a face. WWE can't, because there's just so much time to fill, where some of these guys are only getting 5 minutes screen time, if that. And you just have so much time where you have to plug this, you have to plug that, you have to plug this pay-per-view that even though we just had one 4 days ago, you're going to have another one in 2 days.
That's just awful planning by them. Their pay-per-view schedule is just hot garbage.
Well,
it's just piled on top of each other.
They have to make the sponsors happy. I guarantee that's probably 95% of it.
Yeah.
And I've been saying it for years. I said, you get your big four, you get maybe 1 or 2 pay-per-views more. You get work at 6 months. It'll give you time to get these storylines. It'll give you these chance to, a lot of these fans miss these certain characters. Distance makes the heart grow fonder with a lot of this stuff. Wrestling is a male soap opera. I've said it since day one.
Yep.
That's what it is. Whether you want to believe it or not, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's predetermined. It's predetermined.
Yeah.
That's what a soap opera is.
Well, here's the thing, though, and you tune in every week because there's a story that's developing.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is no story, then what? If you're going to get almost the same version of the same show weekly, why do you tune in? And that's what mainstream wrestling is becoming. You get the same thing every week.
Well, that's what Monday Night Raw has been for them, at least since the last month, because I don't even watch it anymore. I hardly ever watch it anymore because I'll watch it on my phone. I'll see all these tweets and I'll go in and watch the videos that everybody's posting and retweeting and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't need to see it anymore. I can see this 95% of this retribution garbage has been all online.
Here's the thing. They had a story. They had something. They had at least the makings of something that they could have done. It's just that execution is not their friend right now. They can't execute a storyline, but it's who knows if it's maybe too many people getting to say what they want to do or whatnot. But their execution has just been terrible. It's just that they try and set something up and it fizzles out right away. So they don't.
Well, and I think they fell apart even more last night as we were recording. But when they announced, oh yeah, we got contracts now.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
And they can do whatever they want. They got contracts, and they can take over the show anytime they want. That really makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
So you're saying I can go to my job? I'm under contract. I get paid. I can go over and do whatever I want. Well, WWE does it. I can do it too, right? Oh, well, that's predetermined. Oh, bullshit.
It's predetermined, but and we always say, make it make sense. At least we get it. It's staged, whatever. But at least put on the stage something that is actually coherent, not something that is so overthought that it confuses everybody.
And they're saying, oh, this is a new NWO. I said, no, the NWO didn't insult your intelligence. The NWO made you believe that they were really beating the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, they made you believe that they never came out and said we have contracts.
Yeah,
they came out weekly in street clothes.
when you have, if you guys remember the WCW Nitro, when Kevin Nash lawn darted Rey Mysterio into the
trailer.
Whatever the hell. The trailer. There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I got you.
They legitimately had neighbors in that neighborhood call the police on them. When you have people calling the police on you, you know what I mean?
You have a believer. You have a believer right there.
Except the only thing that the people are going to be calling the WWE for police is for trademark infringement.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with all this Batman garbage, and you're dealing with, okay, well, that guy looks like Bane. Oh, wait, no, he's T-Bar. I'm like, what are you pulling? Are you pulling these names out of a freaking hat in the back or something? Or
that has to be what
they were
doing.
playing that game where you pick a letter and then you pick the month of your birthday, and that's the
that's your wrestler name.
Yeah, the first letter of your last name and the month of your birthday. Now you've decided. So I'm T-Bar.
It's those little things like you had in
what the hell is a T-bar?
High school?
It's not like a crowbar.
You're talking about
those paper things.
Yeah.
Like you're right. Okay, you're gonna marry this.
It's not origami. No, it's where you go like this and you go like this, and it's the squares.
Yeah.
And you pull over the tab, and it says,
"I cannot believe we can't figure out."
Someone will watch this that is dated more than us, and that will know what we're talking about.
Yeah, but it's just horrendous. And like I said before, I hate to crap on this stuff because we all grew up with this stuff.
They give you a valid reason, though. And I know looking back on the day, like, we only remember the great parts. Like, you rarely remember all the shitty stuff. But the problem is that the great parts were very, very memorable. Right now, the shitty shit's more memorable than the really good stuff. Like, everything that they've done bad has completely overshadowed Kofi Kingston winning the championship over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Like,
I forgot about that, to be honest with you. Unless if I didn't have a Kofi Kingston figure over here with the title belt, I wouldn't have known that he won the title.
Because they're making you forget these moments. Like, what they did back in the day is that they made you remember. You remember when Edge speared Jeff Hardy off of the ladder in the TLC match. Like, you remember that. You remember the great moments. Like, the Kevin Owens jumping off of the sign through the table, the announce table on the Seth Rollins has been overshadowed by so much bad after that spot. Like, they've done so much good after their big moments that you remember it. It's now that their big moments have been completely casted by bad moments.
And it's not something that they can't do. That's why you have YouTube. That's why you have Twitter. That's why you have Instagram. That's why you have whatever is going to come out in the next 2 hours. That's social media. You know, MySpace could come back. I don't know. But you have the opportunity to do it. Why aren't you? Okay, this date in WWE history, this day, you can do 6 things. Boom, boom, boom. Make a 4-5 minute video. It doesn't even have to be that long. Show clips, for God's sakes, because that's when you're going to get guys like you, guys like me back into it, because you don't know what's going to happen. Expect the unexpected in the WWE. That's always been their mentality.
But it hasn't been in so long.
It hasn't been, I'd say, as far as the last 5 years.
I'd say
nobody cares.
I think you're being generous, but yeah,
I am.
It was always that big element surprise. You're always like, you tuned in because you're like, okay, something could happen.
Yeah,
something could happen. It always felt like there was a big moment always on the horizon.
Yeah,
because
I still try to talk myself out of it, because then I think about, okay, well, maybe they're in that transition phase where we had that, like we said, Rock and Austin, great. What we say, 5-6 years there? Maybe we'll say from 99 to early 2000.
2002.
Yeah,
2003.
Then you had that. Yeah, then you had that
2003.
lull
They
from
just
15 to 19, right? As far as WrestleManias go.
Yeah. And then you got then when you end that, you start, then the Undertaker gains popularity. Shawn Michaels rehashes into there, and then Triple H gets huge notoriety, and then you add someone like Brock Lesnar, who's like the next big thing. I mean,
They don't miss a beat when you miss, like when you have, they always had that next up to bat. It was when they handed,
and that's why it's been so bad.
Because they don't have that once, because they didn't have anyone with Cena. They had Punk, and they let Punk, they disgruntled Punk so much. Like they always had at least two that could be your main guy. Once Punk left and it was just Cena, it was just Cena. And they didn't have that yin and yang. They just had one guy that he literally carried the whole company on his back through the dark ages of wrestling. And then, I mean, Randy Orton was there.
Batista a little bit,
but it was mainly Cena. Edge was there a little bit, but they were all, I mean, Edge had to retire early. And so 2011, you really have just John Cena.
Yeah, like I said, and that's what they're missing now, but it's just,
you had
at the
it
end
with,
of the day.
You had it with Rollins, you had it with Ambrose, you had guys that could have been the next carrier. I mean, they had it. It's just that they fumbled it big time. And Rollins was riding huge momentum after cashing in the Money in the Bank, and that could have rode forever until – and it was. And it might have, had he not gotten injured, and we could be seeing wrestling completely different. But unfortunately, they don't ever have those next up to bat if someone goes down. I mean, John Cena was very durable. He got hurt and came back right away. He was very durable. I mean, that worked in his advantage. I mean, he didn't really work unsafe matches, but that was his advantage. He was very durable, and he didn't wear and tear a lot.
Well, and we could say the same thing about a Finn Balor too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you tried to strap the rocket to him with the first Universal Champion, then he hurts himself, or he gets hurt. I should say he didn't hurt himself.
And again, we could be looking at wrestling completely different had some unfortunate things not happened. But again, you have the guys there that you can put in. You just don't. Like a Kevin Owens. Once Balor goes down and he gets that push from Triple H. Kevin Owens you should have taken the rocket that you were going to strap and put it on, not shrink the rocket and let them fucking flutter and hit the wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just that they have them. They just don't invest in them. They don't have that belief. They're not their guys.
We had another guy, two guys. I just thought of another one while we were talking about it. Two guys that did the exact same thing too. Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe. They weren't their guys. They came from ROH. They came from Impact, whatever. Granted, both of them have been hurt on a consistent basis. I get that. So was a lot of people in the business, but at least when they come back, they get that push. When Triple H tore his quad, he came back at Madison Square Garden and he got pushed.
Daughter.
Well, that too. That helps an awful lot too.
I think that helped him. But you're talking about Edge, who goes down with a neck injury, comes back, and he's right back into the main event picture. Like he didn't really miss a beat. I mean, Batista gets hurt, comes right back, and he's back in that. I mean, it helps that you look like a genetic freak. But you have people that get hurt. I mean, Austin broke his neck. He came and barely missed. And was put in that spot. Mm-hmm. There's always been that person that gets hurt but still has their spot when they come back. They got to a point where they didn't trust that person to be their guy. Mm-hmm. Like they even had it with, as stupid as it sounds, they had it with Ryback, for God's sakes. They had it with Ryback. I mean, as stupid as that sounds right now. With him and Punk, they just didn't pull the trigger on him. If he would have beat Punk, we could have been looking at a completely different trajectory of wrestling. I think they would have found out eventually, probably sooner rather than later, that he was a fraud and he couldn't speak to save his life. He literally had "feed me more" and that was it. But for a little bit there, they had a big draw, a guy that they could have made the guy. They let Del Rio be the guy more than him. And Del Rio sucks.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what I was going to say about Del Rio. But anyways.
I invite you to. I actually invite that.
Well, I have two things. I'll come back to that one. I'll start going back to that. But you said Feed Me More was kind of similar to Who's Next, right?
Yeah.
But look,
and you get
look,
that, but you
here's
get
the
that
thing, it got
comparison.
over. Who's next
Exactly.
got over, and they strapped the rocket to him, and he carried the company for a little bit. Goldberg drew big time.
I will give him the credit where credit's due. Like I said before, I'm not a huge fan. I never have been, never will. But he did it for the business. He got business. He got over. The only thing Del Rio has been doing has been being the best fighter known to man outside the ring. So
and that's not even against the same gender.
No, but that's just you can only give guys so many chances before they really do it to themselves, man. And I think he has the talent. He absolutely does. But he's not smart. He's just a moron. Yeah.
I mean, all Del Rio talk aside, I mean, they've had it. They've lost it. They've lost their touch. They've lost their touch on being able to dial in and just make you invested in these people. Because if you have these top talent that you can invest in, the rest will fall in line, and you'll be able to – it's just that you get all this outside talk about, oh, this person should be pushed, this person should be pushed. If you get your top talent, the rest will fall in line and be either upper mid-card, main event, mid-card, whatever, tag team. And for God's sakes, do something with tag team, because that's what you need. That could be your base to your show, is tag team wrestling. And it's
actual tag team wrestling.
Yes, actual tag team wrestling. Exactly, because tag team wrestling is the easiest story to tell. I feel it's the easiest story. There's a lot more people, and there's always that is that good versus bad in a tag team match, because someone is going to do something when the ref isn't looking, or someone's going to get hurt and not be able to make the tag, and it builds the suspense. It's easier suspense building. Like, I've always felt like tag team, and I love tag team wrestling. It hurts me to see WWE mess it up that badly, because they have always had the best tag team wrestling. It was always insane. And
it hasn't been the same since the 2000 with the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. It hasn't been.
That's when it was at its best. Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to see it again. Honestly, that type of tag team, I don't think we're going to see it again in the WWE.
But you could as long as you had.
You could.
You had it. Like, you had it with the Usos, and you had it with the New Day, and you had it with the Revival, and you can continue to have it with these people, because they were never big on promos. Like the Dudleys, they could talk, but they were never. It was always their in-ring shit that they did, or the stuff that they did building up. It was never really talking. Mm-hmm. The Hardys, they never talked. They just performed in the ring. Edge and Christian were the biggest talkers.
Yeah.
And that's why they got over. And then they proved it in the ring after that.
But I think they're getting on the right, but they're getting on the right track with the Street Profits. They really are. And as much as people don't want to agree with that, because they're just a sideshow, they're just a funny ha-ha kind of characters. And
again, they don't have the yang. Yeah. They have the yin, but they don't have the yang. They don't have that other team. They tried to do something completely stupid with the Viking Warrior Raider experience, when they could have just let them be them and have them be that other tag team that would carry that tag team division, but they had to go and muck that up. I mean, you have Garza and Andrade, which I hear Andrade is in hot water behind the scenes anyway, and their team's going to get split up, and he's going to kind of get forgotten about. But you don't really have tag team wrestling. You have one, and then you have to force yourself, which I hate, to make makeshift tag teams. There's only been so many that have actually really, really worked for longevity. And I think the Bar with Sheamus and Cesaro is one of those, where they actually, they're great singles, and we'll do this best of 7. We'll make them a tag team. That actually worked, and they were a great tag team together. But that's more of a rarity than the norm. Yeah.
Well, you guys will take into account what they're doing in the writers' room too, because I don't think that they don't
know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Well, and there's too many people back there. You know what I mean? Because like I said, maybe currently it's different because they don't, with the epidemic and stuff, they may not have that many people back there. But during normal circumstances,
here's the thing: the writers that they hire aren't they're not wrestling background; they're writing background and story development for TV shows and shit like that. they don't know wrestling. Like if you have the people that were in the business like Road Dogg and people like that are,
but they're more producers.
But the writers usually don't know shit about wrestling. Like you got to have someone that can write, but also knows the goddamn business, also knows what they're doing. Because this is the problem that you run into. You have all these people that are making a TV show, but the TV show doesn't make sense to wrestling fans. So what the fuck good does that make?
Look at Freddie Prinze Jr.
Exactly.
He's a freak in the movies, and he wasn't even good at the movies.
That's also true.
Or, well, granted,
I mean, depends on what you look at.
Female. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just doesn't equate. Like you got to have someone that knows what they're doing, especially now, because there's so many people that are so hip to what's going on behind the scenes and whatnot. Like you need people to distract them that actually know what they're doing to be able to take the focus on, okay, we want to know what's going on behind the scenes, and just focus on what you're supposed to focus on, what's going on in front of you at the moment. People are so worried about, okay, this person's going to leave, this person isn't happy, this person, because your product sucks. If your product is good and you have people writing it, that eliminates the people wondering like, oh, well, they're unhappy, so they must want to leave. Like your product's good, people will start to shift their focus. That's how I look at it.
And they won't go to the secondary sources. You know what I mean? If your product, look at, like you said before, no product is going to be, and it is not currently perfect. There are flaws, and people are working on it. You know, and, you know, everybody's going to crap on AEW. Okay, you can't, with AEW, okay, the women's division is this, you know, it's just a flip and flop, you know, they're just waiting to be caught, and regardless. You say the same thing about WWE. You can go to each and every promotion. Everybody's going to be talking crap about them. ROH, there's nobody there. It's too small. Impact, nobody's there.
Yeah, Impact.
Okay.
My biggest gripe with Impact is that they're on Access, but it's one of the hardest stations to find, or not everyone has it. Like they got to work through. Either you just strictly go to YouTube or do something like that, or Twitch. But I mean, because their product is really good. I like them for their wrestling. I mean, I get they do some skits and whatnot and promo work, but that, take it or leave it for what it is. But I feel like their in-ring quality is very good. I mean, watching Slammiversary, I think that was the last one I watched. That was incredible. Mm-hmm. Like that was really, really well done. There was a lot of surprises. They worked a lot of people in. I mean, you had the Good Brothers come in. You had EC3 cut a promo at the end or do a video vignette. I mean, and you had Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, they did that really well. Like they brought back some older talent, but you also knew them. They were great before. They come back to Impact. They're like, all right, well, they're going to get a shot now. So that they've kind of stacked the decks pretty well in their favor. They're not overdoing it, but they're not underdoing it.
You know, and that's why I said a lot of these guys, like we brought up Ricochet earlier, I'm like, I really don't want to see him go to AEW because it's being an overfiltration of old WWE guys or gals or whomever.
That's the one thing you're not going to really see. I don't see WWE letting too many of the women go because I think they do value their women a hell of a lot more than AEW. And I don't think – and they know that AEW lacks in that particular division. So I don't think that they're going to let up anybody because, I mean, they're not overrun by too much talent on the women's side. They have a pretty set standard, and anyone that they would give up would be a major loss at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would leave WWE because, like you said, one, you get the money, you get the incentives on that end, but you're not going to get booked the right way regardless on AEW. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, things may be different in 6 months down the road. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bring you hate to say it, but there's only few that would save that division. There are only few women out there that you can bring over and be like, and I'm not even talking like, not even like a Tessa or anything like that. The people that are going to save it are going to be either somehow Ronda Rousey. They would automatically come in and save that division, or Sasha, a Bailey, a Becky, or a Charlotte. Because you're not going to be like, okay, say Natty goes to AEW. You're not going to be like, okay, well now AEW's division, women's division is stacked. now they become must see. No, the bigger names in the WWE are who are going to save them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, nobody cares about Natty on WWE, so I don't think anybody's going to care about her on AEW, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying.
And it has nothing to do with her. It's just the way that she's being booked, you know?
It's the way that AEW books women. I mean, right now they're bringing in outside help to help the division. They're trying to, at least. Yeah. I mean, they don't have it. They don't believe in that division enough to put it on TV unless it's for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, they're bringing in, and the people they're bringing in, like Thunder Rosa, bringing in Thunder Rosa, and they're putting on better matches than they're actually in the division.
Exactly. And here's the thing: they don't have a viable contender. They don't have a contender that looks like they're gonna invest in. Like, they don't have anyone that could be looked at as a champion that's gonna carry that division.
Yeah. But like I said, and who knows? You know, it could be. I still say AEW, the most unsung women's wrestling. You know, I may be getting hate tweets for this, but I welcome them. Penelope Ford.
Yeah, she's
one of the most underrated women's wrestlers on that roster. Athletic, she's good in the ring. She can talk, and yes, she's good looking. Great, but she has all that other assets behind her to actually put her forward with that eventual push.
Right now she's acting more as a valet, which
I
mean is all well and good, but when you have someone that you could put into this division and actually breathe life into it, I agree with it.
You know, and they've been pushing a little bit here and there, obviously with this whole current state that everything's in. You can't really, you know, go with what they have, because
I think you could tell I think you could tell what direction they wanted to go into, and unfortunately things happened and they weren't able to. Like, I feel like Chris Statlander was going to be a mainstay and a big time player in that division, and it probably helped carry it. She gets hurt and is out for almost 6 months, and now you Britt Baker, I think they had high hopes for her, but I don't think that they wanted to push her right away and let her develop a little bit more, and that kind of hurts them. So they don't have a clear direction. And it looked like they did at one point, but the wheels came off, and now they're floundering.
Yeah, that's for everybody too. You know what I mean? And I think we're starting to see them at least trying. You know, they're bringing it outside to at least get eyes on the prize, and you know, who knows what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, with especially with the NWA, we'll use that as an example with Thunder Rosa. You know, they're going primetime live every Tuesday at 9 Eastern. So they're making strides to come back. It's just a matter of they got to get those fans that.
But they also
potentially left. Right?
They also lost some big names as well, and I think we'll end it on this topic.
Yeah,
one of the names that they lost is James Storm, who let his contract expire, and now he's in the rumor mill to go to either AEW or back to Impact, or to who is, I think, the leader right now in the clubhouse would be WWE. And I don't know if he's just playing that.
Because I think he's playing that card to get more money.
He has to. It'd be the smartest thing to do.
Because right now I was following him a little bit because he's not really an active guy on social media, but now he's starting to respond more to WWE's tweets and whatnot. So kind of playing that like I'm a free agent and now I'm gonna play this game. Like, I'm gonna have everyone believe I'm going here, but I'm actually gonna go here to try and surprise people.
Yeah, it worked so well the first time with WWE. He wants to go back.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not going to WWE, I don't want Bobby Roode to stay. I want them to eventually make their way back together.
You want beer money again?
I want beer money back.
It's not going to happen in WWE.
And I'm okay with that because I don't think WWE can handle it. I don't think they can handle an actual tag team. I think
it's a different product, and that's the place where they're going to go. They're going to go back to Impact. That's going to go back to where they're familiar as a team, and I see both of them doing it.
Well, and on the plus side, I think you get more out of it. I think if you get beer money, now you have the Motor City Machine Guns, you have the North, who are incredibly underrated when you talk about tag team wrestling.
And you have the Good Brothers. You have a tag team division that, now you have full life into it. Now you have a tag team division that you can say can go toe to toe with AEW's tag team division. Mm-hmm. If you have big names like that.
But you don't even have to put him as a. You don't even. He doesn't have to go back with the tag team. He can go back as a single wrestler and do just as well. Look what Eric Young has done. He's gone back and now he's a heavyweight champion.
I feel like that had to have been in his contract. I feel like it had to have been. Like, he came back and went right to champion. Well, so did Deonna Purrazzo too. Same thing. Yeah, she came in and went right to champion. Yeah.
But I think they're to Impact's credit, I think they're just hitting while the iron's hot. And that's where a lot of the times you see, AEW or WWE, they don't, and they let it sit and simmer and simmer and simmer.
They wait till
after a while, but then nobody cares. Nobody cares after that.
It's Strowman. Strowman's push the same thing. He got the title. No one cared because it was way late. When he was beating up Brock Lesnar and Kane, he should have had it then. When he was throwing grappling hooks at the stage and pulling them down, he should have won it then. That was the time. And I could say this the whole damn show. We could be looking at a completely different trajectory for WWE at this point. Mm-hmm. It could have been completely different. They could have had their larger than life. They could have had people talking about Braun Strowman being this completely indestructible monster.
If that's the aspect, I don't think if that was the aspect, we see a different trajectory from WWE. We wouldn't see AEW. I don't think they would have created another promotion if WWE actually, did what they were saying they're going to do. They push their Strowmans. They turn Roman. They sign this person. They sign that person. They properly book this person.
Here's the thing.
Totally different.
I think AEW still comes to fruition. I think they do, because I still think in the back of their minds with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and even Cody, I don't think that they think that WWE is going to do right by them. I don't think that they're going to get that same AJ Styles level of treatment and come in and run the show. I still think that's deep in the back of their minds. And I think that's why AEW comes to fruition. But I also think when AEW comes out, they have to work even harder. Because right now, they're going against – they're fighting a one-armed man in WWE. Mm. If WWE's firing on all cylinders, and if they're in that different trajectory where they're pushing all the right people and they're making all the right moves, I think AEW has to work 3 times as hard to get over and get these views. So I think you're seeing wrestling at a much better point when everyone's doing their best. Because right now, AEW is only looked at as, in my opinion, as really, really great by most people because WWE sucks so bad. If WWE was running at a much higher level, AEW, there would be a lot more AEW critics out there. They would be like, well, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing this? Everything is awesome over there in that land. But if WWE's firing and they're doing what we know that they can do, what we've seen before, AEW is not getting those views. AEW has to work harder. They have to bring in people. They have to have people. They have to actually compete like WCW did. WCW was forced to change the landscape of wrestling and force WWE's hand. WWE has to tweak a couple moves, and they're back on top. Which they're still on top tactically in ratings, but they're squishing AEW if they make a couple of the right moves.
Well, yeah, and I don't think we really would have seen a lot of these moves. Like I said, we wouldn't see these moves being made if they actually, they did a lot of the stuff we were talking about.
If Rusev Day gets over and they push Rusev Day, he's not there.
Oh, well, it was over. They just didn't want to push it. It was over.
If they push Rusev Day, he doesn't leave. If they take some of the chains off of Rusev and they let him go and be who he got over being, then we don't see him in AEW. We see people they have to create new stars is what I'm saying for AEW, which might have been better.
They should have kept Rusev coming out on tanks every pay-per-view.
I would be okay with that.
Because that's when it was believable with him.
Yeah, we really thought he was a dictator.
Yeah, I really thought kind of is still right. He was Bulgarian, but he's
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I wrote that he was Russian.
Yeah.
The hell? Like, I don't care about Lana. You can put Lana with somebody else. I don't care about her. But Rusev, anyways.
Yeah, Rusev was
He was believable. That's the
Yeah.
thing. That's what they're missing is the believability, and that's where that's where a lot of these fans go over to AEW or other promotions because there is some sort of believability. It may not be 100%. Nothing's 100%, but it's a lot. The percentage is a little bit higher than WWE at this point.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if WWE were to change a few things and get to that level we know, then we're not looking at more of the bad than the good. We're looking at more of the good than the bad.
Right.
And we're looking at a much more competitive nature between wrestling companies right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we
But
don't.
the competitiveness is there. It's just a matter of believing if you compare apples to oranges or apples to oranges. You got to compare apples to apples. You're comparing apples to oranges right now. That's the problem.
Yeah. And here's the thing: if WWE is better, you take those cheap shots away because now those cheap shots that AEW continually throws, they don't land. They just look stupid. But now they're taking cheap shots and they're landing because they're telling someone the truth. But if you don't give them a reason to cheap shot you, then you force their hand to be creative in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, but who doesn't want to be seen on a little TV screen at Raw and SmackDown? Hey, that's me on TV. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah. Larry
There's
did that
for me.
I did it to see how what it was like and what they would go through. But
it was weird.
It was it was really weird. They have a producer talking to you the whole time. It was a little odd. It was cool.
It wasn't the way that wrestling was meant to be watched.
No,
you're not supposed to be in a bubble.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
No, but it's like if I want to be told what to do, I just not watch wrestling and have my wife yell at me. That's there's another wife shot too. I get them all out now, so I don't have to. Oh, honey, you're perfect. Don't worry. No, it looks good. It looks good.
She's not watching.
Oh God, no. She, believe it or not, she's the one that got me back into wrestling, and she despises it. Not despises it. She puts up with it now that I actually do it for, shoot.
I'm in the same boat.
All three of us the same exact way. Yes.
Yeah, we're on the same boat.
She doesn't care. No, she's the one. She bought me tickets to the 2004 Survivor Series in Cleveland. We drove from Buffalo to Cleveland straight through. Well, it's only a couple hours from Buffalo, but straight through, watched a pay-per-view, drove right back, and was down the road. I'm like, yeah, she's hooked. She was always a big Randy Orton fan for obvious reasons, but
loves RKOs.
Those two.
All right,
it had nothing to do that it was greased up like a freaking seal.
Yeah, exactly. And looks the way he looks.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Definitely didn't play any factor.
That helps. But RJ, thank you so much for taking the time and being on our show and talking some wrestling. We really enjoyed it, and we hope you had fun.
Oh yeah, anytime.
So, thanks again, and
you want to
plug your pod as well? Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So Ringside Rant, I'm on all your major podcast platforms. I'm also over on Full Press Coverage Network. Go to fullpresscoverage.com. A little internet radio there. We also have a Full Press Coverage app you can download right from your phone, iOS, Android, all that good stuff. Big fan. Glad to be a part of their network. You head over to whatamaneuver.net. Check out the great merch store there. It's getting that time of the year here in the Northeast. It's hoodie time, so I'm in talks to get a new design coming out soon. So hopefully that'll hit the interwebs around Christmas time. Hopefully sometime. But yeah, every Wednesday I got new episodes coming out tomorrow with Josh from the Irish Whip podcast. Kind of just talk shop like we did tonight. We also watched the Bret Hart Owen Hart match from SummerSlam '94.
Nice.
So that was inside I called it Big Blue there with the old Big Blue cage.
Oh hell yeah!
So we had a lot of build up to that. So I won't spoil it. That comes out at noon Eastern every Wednesday. And then coming up, I got a big guest coming up next week. I'm not going to spoil it here. It's not definite. Once we get off air, I can let you know who I'm scheduled to interview, but I don't
I'll
hate
spoil
doing
it
that
for
with
you.
show. Thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate it. No, hey, it's a pet peeve of mine because I've been burned so many times when I'm promoting this guy. This guy's to be on next week, and then something happens. And
Been there.
That's a bad thing about doing interviews sometimes. But follow me on. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Ringside Rant _RJ. You can follow me on Instagram at Ringside _Rant. Those are the two big ones that I keep an eye on. Subscribe across all your podcast platforms. That's about it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you. All right. Have a good night. Talk to you later.